Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. And today's episode is actually going to be a reposting of a video that I did over 3 months ago, or almost 3 months ago, I should say, on Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers. And I put the video up after I'd read the book and did the review, and I took it down within probably half a day of having it up on the channel. And the reason I took it down is because there was a portion of the video that I was unhappy with. It broke one of the 3 rules that I set up for myself when I started doing booktube videos, 4 or 5 months ago. You know how Isaac Asimov has his 3 rules of robotics, Grammaticus has his 3 rules of booktube, and I broke one of those rules. So I took the video down almost as soon as it went up, and I frankly forgot about it. And then recently I was doing some file maintenance, and I came back across the video, and some 3 months later and some 50 videos later, I actually have editing skills now. So I liked the rest of the video. I thought it was a very good review, in my opinion. And I went ahead and I just edited out the part that I was unhappy with. And now I'm going to repost it back up here on the channel for you guys to check out and comment on down in the comments section, because I do read and try to respond to all the comments. Starship Troopers, written by Robert Heinlein, 1959. Written and published in 1959 in a matter of weeks. He wrote it as a response, a political response to Dwight D. Eisenhower's decision to stop nuclear testing in the middle of the Cold War, which incensed Robert A. Heinlein greatly. And so he wrote Starship Troopers as a political response to that decision by the administration of the United States to take that action to stop nuclear testing. And he injected it with his politics, he injected it with his political beliefs, and then he turned that knob up to 11 in order to make a good novel. And it is an interesting read, it is an interesting review, it's an interesting book to take a look at and sort of dissect, which is why I did the book in the first place, why I read the book, and why I produced the video. So here it is, take 2 on Starship Troopers, the conclusive review. I hope you guys enjoy it, and please put your comments on it down in the comments section. Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. Welcome back to the Starship Troopers edition of Grammaticus Books, which I've really been looking forward to bringing to the channel for a long time, and I just finished Starship Troopers about a week and a half ago, so I'm actually able to make this video on this canonical book by Robert A. Heinlein, Starship Troopers, 1959. So I'm going to break this video into 3 parts. One note, I am kind of losing my voice, so I may have to take frequent drinks throughout the video. Please excuse them. But I'm going to do this video in 3 parts. The first part is just looking at this book strictly as a science fiction novel and its merits as a science fiction novel. Is it a good book? Do you enjoy it? Is it something that I would recommend to other readers of science fiction? So that'll be part 1. Part 2 is we're going to look at the criticisms that this book takes. And this book has a lot of politics in it. And politics ruins everything, so I will tread lightly. But there are 2 main political complaints that get leveled against this book. And so we're going to look at those complaints and just see if those complaints are supported by what Robert Heinlein writes in the book, or if they're not supported, and just leave it at that. I will not interject my own opinions into this at all. But that's it. Let's get started. I'm going to hit a drink of water here as a preventative measure, and then we'll jump right into the book. So, Starship Troopers, the book as a novel, is it good? It starts off with a bang. Robert A. Heinlein drops the foot on the gas pedal, and his race car just takes off from the starting line, and you are flying down the track at 100 miles an hour. The book begins with Johnny Rico, the main character, doing a combat drop on an alien world that is allied to the main threat, the main arachnid bug threat, in order to wreak havoc upon it, destroy as many buildings as possible, but minimizing the loss of life in order to try to convince them to change alliances over to the Terran Federation. And it is fantastically done. It's just a fantastic little piece of military science fiction that really emphasizes and shows off his idea about the powered armor suits. And this is the book that makes that first assertion of using powered armor suits. It's the one that conceptualizes it and brings it out. And it's the seminal book for the powered armored trooper of the future. This book is kind of considered to be ground zero for military science fiction in general, and it is absolutely and specifically where the idea of the powered armor suit of the future originates. And that's really kind of one of its big claims to fame. It's been interesting. I originally read this book back when I was a teenager, and I have not read it since in all the intervening decades, which I won't tell you how many that is. But it's been fascinating to me to compare my memory of it from so long ago, also versus the reputation that it has gained over the decades since Robert Heinlein wrote it in 1959, along with my now new reading of it, and how all those stack up has really been an interesting read for me. Just a little aside there. But he starts off with this fantastic attack on this alien world with these powered armored suits and the mobile infantry, with Juan Rico going down and participating in this attack, this raid. And it's super well done. It is done by an author who understands the military. Robert A. Heinlein served in the Navy. He graduated from the Naval Academy in the early 1930s. He was ranked 5th out of 243 people academically in his class studying naval engineering, which is an amazing accomplishment. The man is very, very intelligent, to say the least. And he knows how to write military. He understands military organizations, he understands military procedures, and he understands military mindset. And it really comes out and it really shines in those opening chapters. And it's just a pleasure to read somebody, a pleasure and a joy to read an author who knows how to write the military in an authentic and a real way. I really appreciated that. So the book is really going along. It's off to a great start. And then you round that first turn on the track, and he brings his race car around to the back straightaway, and then he just jams on the brakes. And all of a sudden, you're back in time with Johnny Rico at his high school, and he's spending most of his time in an ethics class, and you're having discussions between Johnny Rico, other members of the class, and a former veteran of the mobile infantry who is teaching this ethics class. And from there, it moves into Johnny Rico enlisting in the mobile infantry. He enlists in the military, and then it's his experience going from a privileged rich kid to being a private in a military organization, and how he has to deal with that in a sort of a bit of a coming of an age novel. Although it's really not a young adult book. I would not classify this as young adult. And from there, Heinlein uses that as a platform to go into a treatise on military and socioeconomic and political thought and theories. And that is the bulk of the book. The bulk of this book is not military action with the mobile infantry. The bulk of this book is Robert A. Heinlein discoursing upon political, military, and socioeconomic theories that he works into here. And unless you're a big fan of Plato's The Republic and The Art of War by Sun Tzu, you might not enjoy this. I'm kind of strange that way. I actually enjoyed it, but I can see how it would be very difficult to get through and really not that great of a read as a science fiction novel. Fortunately, at the end of the book, he puts his foot back on the gas pedal, and you're with Johnny Rico as he's a grizzled veteran at this point, and they're going down to attack an arachnid world in an attempt to turn the tide of the battle in this conflict to the death between humanity and the arachnids. And it's fantastic at that point. It really picks up and it finishes with a bang. So what's my overall verdict on this book? I love Robert A. Heinlein. This book really has sort of a special place with me in the canon of military sci-fi. And so it pains me greatly to say this, but I don't know if I can recommend this to your typical average science fiction reader. I don't know if I can. The bulk of this book is just like reading Plato's The Republic, except through the eyes of Robert Heinlein. And it really can drag through the center. The front and the back are what stick with people. And that's what stuck with me. That was what my memory of reading this was from back when I was a teenager. And I had forgotten all this treatise and diatribe in the middle of it. And I don't know if I can honestly recommend this book with a straight face as a good book front to back that holds up in its entirety. I don't think it does, unless you're particularly interested in military and political philosophy. You're probably not going to enjoy the book in its entirety. And I don't know if I can recommend it, as painful for me as it is to say that. I think that is where I am with Starship Troopers. So that's the book. It has its good parts. It has its bad parts. What are the critiques that it comes under? And it comes under a lot of political criticisms, mainly for two things. the two main critiques that get leveled against this book are one, that it's racist, and two, that it's fascist. So let's take those in order. Is this a racist book? I can unequivocally tell you, no, it is not. It is not by any stretch of the imagination a racist book. The Mobile Infantry and the Terran Federation is a multicultural, multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious faction that Robert Heinlein constructs that is a world organization. He goes out of his way to impress upon the reader just how much of a multicultural, actual world organization that the Terran Federation is. So it is not a racist book in any stretch of the imagination. So where does this complaint come from then? Well, primarily it comes from because the arachnid enemy in this book are frequently referred to by Robert A. Heinlein as bugs. And that is the basis of calling this a racist book. And it's preposterous, it's ludicrous. It fails prima facie, and I think we can dismiss that one outright. So it isn't a racist book. Is it a fascist book? That one's a little bit more of a sticky wicket. The bulk of this book is political and military discourse by Robert Heinlein. He injects a lot of his political theories and ideas, and they are his. I've read a lot of his books, and they fall very much in line with his mindset in the other books, which is very conservative. But if it's fascist, then the first thing, if we want to determine if it is a fascist book, if it has fascist elements, you need to define what fascism is. And there are three main components to a fascist regime. The first is that it's run by a dictator. You have one person at the top, and that person determines all of the laws and the rules for everybody underneath him. That fascist regime has no input from the masses. You cannot, as a person, as a citizen in a fascist regime, have your input flow uphill to the dictator. Everything flows downhill from the dictator with no ability as a citizen to have any effect on your government. And the third thing that makes up a fascist regime is that it is frequently based upon a military power base, and that military power base is frequently either projected out against its neighbors or turned inward against its own people, or a combination of the two, in order to support itself. So are those three elements present in this book? You do have a very powerful military in it, that is true, but you do not have a dictatorship at all. In fact, Robert A. Heinlein goes out of his way to portray his idea of a utopian society as an exceptionally robust democracy. It is a democracy that he puts forward in here, but unfortunately, it's an exceptionally constricted democracy in terms of who the electorate is. The only people who can obtain full citizenship, as per Robert A. Heinlein, are people who have served in the military and then have retired out of the military. If you're active duty, you can't vote. You're not a full citizen until you've retired from your service. And then you can vote and fully participate in the democracy. And again, it is a fully functioning and robust democracy that he sets up. So it's not a dictatorship. It fails in that element for a fascist government. And the military service is open to everyone, men and women, males and females. You just have to be able to get through it. So is that a fascist idea? No, it isn't. Is it an exceptionally conservative idea that would probably be distasteful to most Americans? Yes, it is. But it is what it is. It is not fascist per se. It's not a defined fascist government that he sets up in the book. However, that being said, he does express some ideas in there outside of this government organization that he's established that could be construed as fascist adjacent. And I'll read one of them to you, probably the most controversial. So to me, this was my opinion, probably his most controversial idea that he expresses in the book. And this is him talking about how the old democracies, and what he means by the old democracies is the United States of America, why they failed and how they failed in this science fiction novel that's written in the far future, not the far future, but hundreds of years in the future. So he's talking about the United States, and he says, their citizens glorified their mythology of rights and lost track of their duties, and no nation so constructed can endure. So he goes after the Bill of Rights in this statement, and he goes after the Bill of Rights a couple times in the book. And that is, I think, dangerously fascist adjacent statements that do get him into some hot water here in the book, legitimately get him into a little bit of hot water and attract complaints like a lightning rod. Those are kind of lightning rod statements. The book is also anti-communist, and surprisingly, it is also anti-capitalist. The hero of the book, Johnny Rico, he's a fabulously wealthy, rich kid, comes from this privileged background, but then he gives that all up to go into a life of service and duty in the military, which is really the core ideal that Heinlein is trying to set up here. His father is fabulously wealthy. He disowns him when he enlists in the military instead of taking over the family business. But then later in the book, the father's wife is killed by an arachnid attack on Earth, and he realizes, as per Heinlein, that his wealth is meaningless if he can't defend his loved ones. And so he turns the business over to another relative, and he enlists in the mobile infantry. And this is just this is Heinlein again showing that he is not a very pro-capitalist guy. What he does value, according to his books, is he values service, dedication, and sacrifice. And those are the ideals that he wants to present forward in this book and in other books. And he has one line in here that I think is shows a really good description and a good insight into his mindset about wealth. And he says, "I pity the poverty of your wealth." And this is a conversation between Johnny Rico and his mobile infantry high school teacher in his ethics class, who tells him, "I pity the poverty of your wealth." And I think that sums up Heinlein's ideals on capitalism very well. So that's the book from a political perspective. I hope I have tread successfully lightly through that minefield and didn't set off any of those landmines, and I have both legs attached still. But let me know what you think down in the comments section. But my throat is going. My brain is, I've been talking so long, but my brain is having difficulty getting the neurons to connect. So I need to wrap this up. I want to wrap it up with the last page in the book here by by Robert A. Heinlein. The ship that Johnny Rico serves on during his time here in the mobile infantry, and the ship that's in Starship Troopers, is called the Robert Young. And Heinlein ends the book with a historical note. Young Roger W., Private, 148th Infantry, 37th Infantry Division, the Ohio Buckeyes. Born Tiffin, Ohio, 28 April 1918. Died 31 July 1943 on the island of New Georgia, Solomon's South Pacific, while single-handedly attacking and destroying an enemy machine gun pillbox. His platoon had been pinned down by intense fire from this pillbox. Private Young was wounded in the first burst. He crawled toward the pillbox, was wounded a second time, but continued to advance, firing his rifle as he did so. He closed on the pillbox, attacked and destroyed it with hand grenades, but in so doing, he was wounded a third time and killed. His bold and gallant action in the face of overwhelming odds enabled his teammates to escape without loss. He was awarded posthumously the Medal of Honor. And so as Robert A. Heinlein wraps this up, I'm going to dedicate it, just like he did, to the everlasting glory of the infantry. And this is Grammaticus Books saying take care, be safe, and I'll catch you guys next time.